It's tempting, in retrospect, to want lives to make sense, to resolve into clean arcs, to leave behind a moral, a warning, a lesson. We reach instinctively for meaning, especially when faced with intensity, with genius, with suffering, with tragedy. And so we try to file complex people into neat categories: hero, villain, inspiration, cautionary tale. Mike Mentzer resists those categories. He doesn't fit into them, not because he failed to meet their standards, but because he lived too honestly to conform to them. He wasn't a morality play. He wasn't a template. He was a human being who lived and thought and trained and suffered at full volume. And that's why the impulse to label him as a cautionary tale doesn't quite hold up under scrutiny. Not just because it's reductive, but because it misunderstands the very nature of what a life is. At first glance, it's easy to understand why some might interpret Mike Mentzer's life as cautionary. His story features all the ingredients of that narrative: early brilliance, defiance of the system, a public fall from grace, a retreat into isolation, and an untimely death. But to call it a cautionary tale is to impose a framework that simplifies what was in reality a deeply unique and highly specific existence. The very idea of a cautionary tale rests on the assumption that human lives are transferable, that someone else's experience can be directly applied to your own. It suggests that if we follow certain steps or avoid certain paths, we'll be spared their pain. But life isn't a fable. It doesn't come with universal truths disguised as plot points. As Mentzer himself observed,
"We are all most unique in that each of us possess the unique stamp of an unrepeatable, irreplaceable personality, in that each of us occupies a different space and time."
That observation isn't just poetic, it's existential. It means that no two lives are comparable in a way that permits true replication or substitution. Genetics, time period, mental health, upbringing, personal philosophy, social context, all of these shape our decisions, possibilities, and outcomes. So, to use Mike's life as a warning is to commit a category error. You can't map one life onto another like an instruction manual. The terrain is always different. The myth of the teachable life. We often look at others' lives in search of clues, not out of malice, but out of a yearning for clarity. We want to know what works, what doesn't, what to emulate, what to avoid. The Buddha sat under a bo tree and found enlightenment. You could sit under that same tree for 1,000 lifetimes and achieve nothing. Why? Because he wasn't just sitting under a tree. He was being himself in that exact moment in space and time. Krishnamurti had his awakening under a pepper tree. Mike Mentzer had his intellectual and physical awakenings in gyms and in books. What unites them is not that they found answers, but that they engaged fully, uniquely, with their own experience. The context matters. The person matters. The life matters. To be fully human is to resist simplification. Mike Mentzer was a man of extremes. His thinking was sharp, his ideals uncompromising, his presence commanding. He introduced philosophy to bodybuilding, precision to training, and integrity to a sport often powered by conformity. He questioned everything, including the very structure of the system that crowned and discarded him. He also struggled with the aftermath of betrayal, with mental illness, with the crushing weight of disappointment, and the quiet burden of intellect. Like Nietzsche, he tried to self-medicate through philosophy, through rigorous thinking, through discipline. It worked, until it didn't. Was that a failure, or simply the end of a particular kind of effort? To call that a cautionary tale is to mistake the collapse for the whole story. To look at the final movement of a symphony and assume it was all in a minor key. But Mike's life contains so many notes: triumph, beauty, clarity, rebellion, love, obsession. He didn't just live, he lived at full volume. And that's something rare. It's something valuable. But it's not something you can reduce to a warning label. Intensity without imitation. What Mike offers isn't a model to copy or a fate to avoid. It's a mirror. He shows us what happens when a person tries, really tries, to live according to their deepest values, even when those values don't make life easier. He showed us the cost of clarity, the fragility of brilliance, the power of thought when applied with sincerity and force. But most of all, he shows us that no one else's life can, or should, serve as a blueprint for our own. There's no correct way to be human. There's only the truth we can bear, the meaning we can make, the reality we must navigate, each from our own point in time, in space, in circumstance. Mike Mentzer's life is not a cautionary tale. It is not a tidy moral story. It's not a lesson in what to avoid. It's not even, strictly speaking, an inspiration, if we mean that in the superficial poster on the wall kind of way. It's something harder and more valuable. It's a life that demands we wrestle with it, a life that doesn't let us look away, a life that forces us to confront the question, what does it mean to live fully? Not successfully, not safely, but fully, with force, with depth, with intention. In the end, Mentzer didn't ask us to copy him. He asked us to think, to feel, to train, to live. And in doing that, in living at full volume, he left behind not a cautionary tale, but a singular echo, one that, if we listen closely, doesn't warn us away from his path. It dares us to find our own.